Hi, this is Emily Beach, and today we're going to be using primary colors that we had mixed in color wheels in the previous lesson to make short, small color studies so that we can see the results of using the different palettes that we made. To set this up, I'm going to be using primed watercolor paper, but you could also use canvas paper or stretched canvas, and I just sectioned out 3 different sections using masking tape. One of the sections I primed with white acrylic paint. One of the sections I primed with burnt umber, and the other I primed with both the burnt umber and the titanium white acrylic paint. Now I'm just going in, now that they're dry, and sketching a sphere on a surface on all 3 of the different sections. So that's pretty easy, just a circle. If you needed to trace something, you could, and then a line that goes across in the back. You could have it up higher or lower. As I said, I'm going to be using the same primary colors from each of the 3 color wheels that we did in the previous lesson. And so for the first one, I'm going to be working in the white primed section. I'm going to be placing the ultramarine blue on the surface, the yellow medium in the background, and then the vermilion in for the sphere. I also put some titanium white on my palette as well to add in some highlights. So I'm just using a little bit of painting medium and those 3 primary colors to fill in my sketch. I'm using a flat brush, but you could certainly use a round brush. This is just a quick study. And then I'm going to place my highlight in first, and then I'll paint with the vermilion around that and then blend it. I have other videos on my channel with the same kind of concept, the sphere with the highlight, middle tone shadow, cast shadow on a surface. That is a great, easy subject matter. You don't have to have anything to look at per se to do that. And it will help you practice values with whatever medium you are working with. And so that's something I don't think you can do enough of when you are practicing with a new medium. It is a great technique to hone in on your skills. So I'm just going in with this dry fan brush to blend, make the blending a little bit smoother, since I'm just working quickly and not really allowing the paint to tack up. Again, this paint is going to probably take a few days to really dry. So going in with a dry brush will help you kind of get the blending a little bit softer. I'm going to take that vermilion red and just work right on top of my ultramarine blue to work in on the cast shadow of that sphere. One of the things that I particularly appreciate is having a little bit of that red in the shadow. Makes it look like the surface is a little bit reflective. I'm also going to go in with a little bit of my titanium white and put a small amount of white at the bottom of that sphere to kind of show bounce light or reflected light. I'm also going in here with a little bit of that ultramarine blue and just kind of making the background a little bit darker on the shadow side of the sphere. And that is it. So the next section that I'm going to work in, I'm going to be using a rectangle that has just been washed with burnt sienna. One of the things that I would like you to see here is that when you tone your canvas or your paper, first, the colors will appear to stand out. They'll be a little bit more opaque. You can experiment with toning it using different colors. The reason why I chose burnt sienna is because it's a nice neutral. So the color palette of primaries that I'm using here is the alizarin crimson. So I'm working in with a little bit of titanium white for the highlight and the alizarin crimson for the sphere. And then I'm going to be using my cerulean blue for the surface and my lemon yellow for the background. So you can see how that cerulean blue is really just standing out. For this, I'm not working with glazes, so I'm not adding a lot of painting medium to this to thin it out because I want it to stand out nice, bright, and bold on that burnt sienna background. So I'm going ahead and filling that in with the cerulean blue. Then coming in with the lemon yellow in the background. Just going to go ahead and fill that in. You can see that the lemon yellow is not a really bright yellow on top of that burnt sienna. That's kind of one of the nice things about toning your canvas prior to working is it will add some sense of depth, but you won't get those really bright pops of color. I'm going to put a little bit of the titanium white into that lemon yellow just to brighten it up on the highlight side of the background. And then I'm going to go in and work in my cast shadow, a little bit of that lemon yellow, a little bit of that alizarin crimson, and both of those colors in there to create that cast shadow effect. I'm just keeping my brush strokes nice and loose. I'm not going to worry about overworking the areas. And then I'm going to pop in a little bit of that titanium white at the very bottom to make it look like it's got some bounce light or reflected light coming off of the surface. And so that is the second study. In the third study, I used a little bit of burnt sienna and titanium white just to lay a ground. And after I did my sketch, I'm coming in with burnt umber, which is darker, and that is acrylic paint. And I'm just quickly sketching in where the shadows are, and then I'll take my titanium white acrylic paint and quickly sketch in where the highlights are. And then I will be painting over this acrylic once it dries with my oil paint in my third color palette. I'm going to be thinning out those oil paints a little bit more with the painting medium so that they are thinner, more transparent, and create more of a glaze. So again, just finishing up the acrylic highlights and shadows here and just leaving that burnt sienna as the middle tone. I'm gonna let that dry before I go back in and work with the oil paints. An important thing to note is that you can paint oil over acrylic, but you can't paint acrylic over oil because it will want to bead up on that oil surface. So acrylic can be underneath, but you can't mix acrylic in with your oil paints, and you cannot paint the acrylics over the oil paints. So here I thinned out the cadmium barium red with my painting medium to fill in the sphere. And now I'm going in with the Payne's gray and painting in the surface. That is really coming in nice and strong and deep on top of that burnt sienna background. It's watered down so that you can see a little bit of the burnt sienna through it. I shouldn't say watered down, it's thinned out. You do not want to mix water with your oil color paints. So the next color that I'm using is the Naples yellow, and I'm thinning that out with my painting medium, filling in the background. It's going to show up more yellow in the areas where I had painted the titanium white in the background, and in the areas where the burnt sienna is showing through, it's going to be more of a neutral. And so I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of the Naples yellow sort of reflecting in near that highlight. And I'm going to take a little bit of the Payne's gray and have that reflecting in near the bottom of the sphere, just to have the shadow on the sphere's surface. I'll use a little bit of titanium white just to kind of pop in a highlight at the bottom, and I will blend that out just so it looks like reflected or bounced light. I'm going to go work in on this cast shadow and put a little bit of my Naples yellow into that cast shadow, a little bit more of the Payne's gray, a little bit more of the alizarin crimson. And here you have all three of them so that you can compare them and think about your color palette usage. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.